Hi everyone. As you're filing in for this session, we're going to do a group cheers to kick it off, post-lunch beer. Hope everyone had a good lunch. Before the presentation begins, we just want to hear a word from our sponsors for the room. So gentlemen.
From your sponsors. So a lot of you know Dave and I already. We're from Acrisure. We've been involved for the last 5 years with the organization. We're now official sponsor partner. So look, it all comes down to this. If you're getting your insurance from someone who's not your mother, not your father, not your brother, not your sister, not your aunt, or not your uncle, it would really behoove you to speak to Dave and I. There are rising costs throughout the world. See what's going on in the world. Every gasoline cost, fertilizer cost is going up. You have no control over that. But you do have control over your cost of insurance. It's a pain in the ass. It's a little work, 30 minutes or an hour. But if you could save 10, 15, 20% off your premium, that goes directly to your bottom line. In addition, Dave and I have written numerous policies with members, and we found many errors on policies where people are paying for coverages that there's no risk there, so they don't need. And we had one brewery that did $195,000 worth of A&A, which was additions, alterations, building a deck and everything, and that broker didn't add it to the policy. So if there was a fire and that burned down, they were out $190,000. So please, take the cards with you, because no one took them from the first meeting. So at least we can go back and say they took it and threw it away. Give us a call. I mean, we're really good guys. We just want to help you save money and make sure you cover properly. Peace out. Thanks.
Thank you, guys.
Thank you. Thank you, everyone, for attending Brewing Operations Beer Menu Mastery. It is my honor to present Mirella Amato. Did I pronounce that? Thank you so much for coming down from our neighbors from the north, Mirella. Mirella is Canada's only Master Cicerone. So I think let's cheers to that, please. International beer judge and author of the award-winning book, Beerology, Everything You Need to Know to Enjoy Beer, Even More. Beerology's mission is to help grow the industry by promoting a better understanding of beer and its many qualities. And a little bit about Mirella really fast. She's the Senior Development Manager of Beer for the Global Drinks Education Organization, WSET, and contributed to the creation of their Level 1 and Level 2 WSET Beer Awards, which were released in 2024. So Mirella's going to give a chat, and then we can open the floor to questions and conversation after. So without any further ado, may I please present Mirella.
Hello. Hi. I'm going to take my hands out of my pockets. All right. Welcome to Beer Menu Mastery, creating a beer menu that sparks curiosity by me. Well, thank you for that introduction. I don't think I have much to add here, but I've been working in beer for just about 20 years with a focus on education and sensory. I am a recognized beer sommelier in the U.S., I am the only Master Cicerone in Canada. I was also the first Master Cicerone outside the U.S. I am a recognized beer sommelier in Germany with the Germans Institute, and in the U.K. with the Beer and Cider Academy, now CIBD. Award-winning book, blah, blah. And I also have an online course called Mastering Beer and Food Pairing, brought to you by Beerology. And I am the Senior Business Development Manager for beer at WSET. So how many people here are familiar with WSET? One confident hand in the front. All right, I'm glad I included this information then. So WSET is a drinks education organization. It was founded in 1969. It's UK-based. It's the world's leading drinks qualifications organization. We have over 125K candidates globally a year. We have 12 qualifications, so that's in wine, beers, spirits, and sake. And we have over 700 schools around the globe that teach our courses. The beer is the latest stream. I was brought in to help create the beer courses a couple of years ago, and now I'm excited to talk about those beer courses whenever I can. All right. So what sets WSET apart? I think the main thing is that WSET is really focused on the student's success. So our educators, the people who teach our courses, are taught. They're given an educator training, not only generally not on the subject matter. We usually seek out subject matter experts, but on how to teach, because an expert does not a teacher make. So we are both specializing in our streams, but also in how to educate. We also have course materials that help prepare our students for their work. We're very well known for our tasting component. So we have something called the systematic approach to tasting. There's a different one for each stream. There's a different one at each level. And so the philosophy behind WSET is if you really want to understand a beverage, you need to make connections between how it was made, which ingredients were used, and which process, and how that manifests in the glass. And so the whole point of WSET and of our courses is to strengthen that connection so that people really understand what's in the glass. And the knowledge is universally applicable, as you can see here from the people who take our courses. Mostly a bit more industry than recreational, and within the industry, there's a wide swath of people who take these courses, whether you're in marketing or in distribution and sales, retail, HoReCa. Doesn't matter. These courses are generally considered useful, and businesses love them. These are great numbers. They find our courses really helpful. Here we go. So as I mentioned, my focus is beer at WSET. I help build the beer credentials, and it's actually my journey in building these beer credentials that gave me the idea for this talk today, and I hope that it will be useful. Before I dive in, just a bit about the two courses. We have this, it's the British way. They call them awards. I don't know why we call them awards, they're courses, but you are awarded a pin and a certificate at the end, so I guess that's why it's called an award. So level 1 is really short and snappy, 6 hours. Level 2 is 16 hours. So level 1 is really for anyone who's just tangentially involved in beer. Like anyone who works in beer at all should at least have like a base understanding of what beer is. Like 6 hours is good. And then people who work closely with beer, have to explain beer to customers, etc., benefit more from level 2. Level 1 and 2 comparison. Oh yeah, on a side note, I'm always surprised at the number of establishments that do not require beer understanding in their staff. An educated and empowered staff is an effective staff. It's something that I find pretty specific to beer in other areas, like in wine certainly, but even coffee, chocolate. Just a rudimentary understanding of production and the flavors that you can find is pretty standard across the board. So yeah, I would love to see more education in beer, but that's a talk for another time. Here we go. Let's start with our beer menus. So what is the purpose of a beer menu? Obviously, to sell beer. And how do we achieve this? Well, you want to start by offering a compelling selection. And what is a compelling selection really depends on your establishment and your audience. So I'm not here to tell you which beers you specifically should be carrying, because your drinkership should be telling you that. And there are ways to determine that. But the point is, once you have the right selection, the important thing is being able to help consumers find what they want to drink, whether they know what they want to drink or not. So a good menu is going to guide customers, and that's what I want to focus on for today. Now, of course, we live in a completely different beer landscape than we did 20 years ago. Looking around this crowd, I'm thinking maybe how many people were here when that was what the beer selection looked like? A couple people. Yeah. I see you. You see me. Yeah. So, not much needed in terms of guidance for the consumer. Nowadays, the selection looks more like this, and I would hazard that the establishments that you're all involved with probably have a selection that looks more like this, unless it's a lineup of IPAs, which I guess would be closer to the first one. But the point is, I keep getting lost in my notes. I don't know what to focus on today. Here we are. So for most of us, this is a pretty normal selection, but I think it's easy to lose sight of the fact that a lot of these styles are still new to a lot of people. And there's also a new generation coming up every day that is now coming up into this selection, into that instead of that selection, and this is a lot more intimidating. There's a larger barrier to entry, and there's a lot more confusion. So people that are coming up in the beer world today and that are drinking in our establishments really do require a lot of guidance. So how do you present a beer selection in an approachable and inviting way, and how do we best advise our retailers, whether they be restaurants, bars, or pubs, to ensure that our beers are noticed on the menu and laid out in a way that invites adventure. All right, so let's start by looking at a few typical beer menu layouts. Many of these will look familiar. So the first one is domestic versus craft. This is not so common in craft breweries, but I'm still seeing this in bars and pubs. It's really of limited use, and it's not helping anyone involved. Because if you have a look here, we have, oh, do I have a pointer? Do I have a pointer? Ah, and it works on the slide. Okay. So we have Sam Adams here in the same category as Bud Light. But that's like two very different beers. And meanwhile, we have over here under craft, oops, I can't see it. There we go. Your 312, which would probably fare better over here instead of in this sea of IPAs. So the layout is not doing the beer any favors. It's really, it's not a useful way to lay out a menu. The second thing, this I'm seeing less and less of. This was really popular for a minute, but beers separated by the country of origin, and I think this was popular for a while because wine people can relate to it. It gives like a sense of origin. It looks fancy, but again, lots of problems here. Let's say I'm looking for a dark beer. It's not legible. It's not legible at all, but there's Guinness right here. And so, you know, I'm looking for a dark beer. I'm going to find that Guinness. I probably will not know to look for the Dunkels in the German section. And I'm certainly going to miss the Ayinger Celebrator, which could be a really fun upsell, right? And on the flip side, let's say I'm on the market for a Pilsner. I want something nice, crisp, and refreshing. I'm going to go German. If I just think, oh, Ayinger Celebrator, I haven't heard of that Pilsner, that's not going to work out, again, for anyone involved. All right, so by style, this is, I think, a lot more common now and something that I'm seeing in craft establishments. And this is definitely effective in terms of grouping similar beers together, which was the main problem with the first two menus there. But it has two limiting factors. The first one is it does require a certain amount of literacy. You know, I see pale ale here, I see India pale ale. If I don't know what that is, or I don't know what the difference is, that can be a little bit intimidating. It's not really inviting adventure. And the other thing with this menu here is if you introduce a new beer that's in a different style, then you have to, you know, redo the layout of the whole menu, and that can become cumbersome, especially if you like to vary your selection, which many of us do. All right, and last here, ale versus lagers. This definitely comes from wine. You know, wine is red versus white. People want, you know, easy categorizations. It really doesn't work. If you want to hear my rant about this, you're welcome to hop onto YouTube. On my beerology channel, I have a bit of a rant under my old beer habits that we need to get rid of section. But the point being, this is not a very effective way for someone to navigate a selection. Just a small example, like an India Pale Lager is going to appeal to an IPA drinker more than it's going to appeal to, I don't know, a Pilsner drinker, right, for example. Just dividing by by the yeast used is, these are informations that are important if you're a brewer, but for the consumer, not so important. That was my rant in a nutshell. Okay, here we go. So then how do we organize a selection? And this is exactly the question that I was faced with when I was putting together these WSET courses. And these are some of the beers that I had to organize. This is half of them. And so the task was to group them in a way that will help students make sense of this, seemingly, endless list of beers. Again, this is just half. So with students, it's important to organize the beers to help them make connections and understand the similarities between the styles and start to process that. And with customers, it's going to encourage adventure and help you drive them to certain beers. So I did not approach this from scratch. This is a question that I had already tackled when I wrote my book. So I had an idea of what I wanted to do. So, as I mentioned before, in wine, we celebrate. I will learn to speak English in a minute. In the meantime, please bear with me. So in wine, we separate into red, white, and sparkling. And the difference there are processes, right? Was it rested on the skins or not? And was it carbonated or not? And those are clear differences. And so I wanted to do something similar in beer, but focus more on ingredients. And it would have been ideal to just have 2 or 3 categories, but we can't do that. Why? Because beer is more complicated than wine. Solid nods. Yes, absolutely. Okay, so the idea is that each of these ingredients is going to impact the flavor profile, and depending on which one has the most impact on that flavor profile, that'll be sort of the driving aroma in the beer. So let's go over some of these aromatics here. So under malts, we can have, anything from bready, toasty cracker notes to chocolate, coffee, caramel, digestive biscuits, honey. With hops, we're all familiar with these aromatics. We've got our citrus notes, our flowers, our herbs, and pine, of course, always hanging out there. Our yeast notes, and this is Saccharomyces specific, so then we have our esters and our phenols. And then other organisms, we're getting into beers that are going to, certain people are going to gravitate to, and other people might find a little challenging or surprising. So we have our lactobacillus notes there, acetobacter notes, and that's my tiny little horse blanket. Yeah, it's just not to scale, but I had to fit it on the slide. So the idea is, obviously there is a range within each of these categories, but there's also a similarity. So we really can make this distinction, and then we can divide a beer based on which ingredient is dominant. So this is what we do at WSET. We have malt-driven styles, hop-driven styles, yeast-driven styles, mixed fermentation styles, and then other beer styles is like your gluten-free, your alcohol-free. I'm missing one. Gluten-free, alcohol-free, doesn't matter. There's another thing that happens. Okay, so this is to give you an idea of what kind of beers end up in each of these categories. So we have our malt-driven styles. Professional folks. She's professional. Thank you. Thanks. It keeps me happy. All right, so this is blonde ale. That's an international lager. We've got our porter stouts, Helles Dunkel, Irish red ale, and our brown ales. So these are all malt-forward beers. At WSET, we do a further separation here. So golden and straw colored, which are going to have your more sort of bready notes. And then we separate out the malt-driven styles that are darker, so that those are the ones with like the caramel, chocolate, coffee notes. Hop-driven styles, so you have your Pilsner, your IPA, your hazies, your pale ales, and your bitters. Yeast-driven styles, you got your wheat beers, Belgian and German, Saison, your Abbey styles. And then mixed fermentation styles, we have our Flanders Red, our Heuze, and our Berliner Weiss and Gürze. So these categories, once you look at them this way, they do make sense. So what are the opportunities once we've laid the menu out in this way? Because this does a lot for both staff and customers. First thing, it's going to empower the customer. Essentially what it's doing is giving them an area of the menu that speaks to either their preference or their mood in that moment, and might encourage them to learn about different styles that are within the realm of the flavors that they like, which leads me to my second point. It does invite exploration. So essentially what you're doing is creating a little playground for them. You're putting a little fence and saying, hey, these beers are all kind of similar, and so if you want to play, this is a safe area for you to venture out into. Also, makes staff recommendations look more legit, right? Because if the staff is pointing you out to another beer that's in your area that you know and are familiar with, it's going to inspire confidence. It also helps to contextualize new offerings. So you've got a new beer, maybe a new style that no one's heard of, or maybe it's not to style at all. Maybe it's just a delicious creation that you invented in your head. And that's fine. So then you can simply put it in its appropriate category, and customers will automatically have an idea of what it's like. Regulars who are always shopping that category will spot it right away and probably be intrigued. And finally, of course, apart from adventure, it also helps with upselling, again, because it strengthens those staff recommendations, and it sets the stage for the staff then to be able to make those recommendations and to point to the beers that you'd like to move. Now, I've seen this used to great effect in a range of establishments, but I'm still seeing a lot of missed opportunities. Now, of course, these categories are effective, but the names we use at WSET, they're not ideal for a menu. You don't want to go with malt-driven, hop-driven. That requires, again, some literacy. So here are some other ideas of terms that you can use. Over here to the right, this is the menu at Beer Bistro, which is a Toronto beer restaurant. I don't know, has anyone been here to Bistro? Oh, you've been? Okay. Oh, yeah, we went together. That's true. So this was fun. I was preparing this talk, and I Googled their menu. They changed it recently, and they've actually changed it. These are the titles of the chapters in my book, is what they went with. I was pretty tickled. But you can see here, refreshing. So these are your Pilsners, your Helleses. That's a Kirsch right there. Hefeweizen, anything that's refreshing. Captivating. So these are your yeast-driven styles. Striking, for me, was a combination of hop-driven styles and sours. So probably ideal to separate it further. I was writing a book, not a menu. And then mellow is your malt-driven styles. But here are some other names that you could use. For malt-driven, you can, as a beer educator, I'm always telling people, don't use the term malty. It's not specific enough. But with a menu, you don't want specific. You want like a catch-all term. So in this situation, when I thought about it long and hard, I was like, no, malty, it really works. Mellow is what I used in my book. Toasty, smooth. Depending on your selection, you could go with rich as well, especially if you're separating out the blonde ones. Hop-driven styles, you can use hoppy, striking, which is I think what I use. Yeah, bright, vibrant. These are inviting terms, but they're also descriptive of what those flavors are. Yeast-driven, spicy, complex, captivating is I think what I went with. Layered, I find very inviting. If your yeast-driven styles are all, Belgian Abbey styles, you could go with bold, something like that. Mixed fermentation, you could just lead with sour if you wanted. We have a brewery in Toronto called Bellwood's Brewery, which I'm sure you have heard of. And so I was there opening week, and they had a section that was sour beers, fair warning, these are sour. And I was like, yeah, okay, that makes sense to me. 3 weeks later, I come back to the brewery, and they changed it to purposefully soured beers. I was like, you can't win, can you? Like, it says sour, and people are still oh, this tastes like a mistake. No, yeah, they're purposefully sour, dude. That was years ago. And then, of course, gluten-free or, local beers. Sometimes that fares really well on a menu. That'll just leap out at people, especially if you're in an area with a lot of tourists coming in and out. They want to know what's local. And alcohol-free. Okay, so here are some compelling examples that I found on the internet. I had to hunt through hundreds of online beer menus to find this. It took me over a half hour because trust me, I would not have subjected you to this color scheme if it wasn't absolutely necessary. All right, so the first one here is more edgy, right? You've got light beers and you've got hop heads and malty and dark. So that's very moody, very romantic. I like it. I don't know how I'd feel about ordering from the light beer section. I feel like something a little more edgy there would be fun too, but still, feels good. Feels good to order. The second one is a bit more practical, closer to, what I have in my book. Used to be able to read these slides. So there's crisp and bright, there's hoppy, there's, toasted and malty. Oh, dark and roasted. And I have no clue what that says.
Sour and funky.
Sour and funky. Thank you. Very good. Yeah. So that's great. It's more practical, it's just letting you know what's what. And the third is a bit more mood driven. This is closer to what's in my book. So we have bold and rich here. This is fruity. This is full bodied. And I'm guessing that's going to say something about crisp and refreshing. So this is, in theory, good. In practice, there are some issues here. Oh yeah, no, that says easy drinking. So in easy drinking, you have like your golden malt-driven beers. Fantastic. Bold and rich, that's their hop-driven beers. I don't know about. There's one of the beers here is described as having a citrus punch. I don't know if I would call that bold and rich. So. And then, fruity is fine. There's some fruit beers here, but then there's a hazy up here, which is also described as very fruity. So that might cause some confusion to someone who's just reading it. And full bodied, you can't read it here, but it's a honey lager. So great categories. Who's dividing this up? Which leads me to my next point, because a good menu is great, but it does not replace a knowledgeable staff. Not only do you need someone who can help guide people through the menu, but you also need people who know where to put the new beers once they come in and aren't putting the honey beer in the full-bodied category. But beyond this detail, I hope that the advantages of my layout are clear. They certainly make the wait staff's job a lot easier. So that's it for me. This was just a half-hour talk. I did want to draw your attention, though. There's a menu talk tomorrow, Menu Engineering for Profit and How to Manage Food Cost to Improve Profitability. It's 1 p.m. tomorrow with Doug Krushka. And he's going to talk a bit more about pricing strategy, how to write prices to maximize profits, and also touch on operational efficiency. So where to find hidden profits through food cost management, managing waste loss, and that sort of thing. My name is Mirella again. That's my email address if ever you want to chat about anything. But we can also chat now if you want. Because I'm here and I have finally managed to get a full grasp on the English language. I was a little touch and go off the top there. Thanks for your time.
Just after 1:30, so this does go till 2,
31.
so we have plenty of time for questions, if you do have questions.
Yeah, hi.
Hi, not hyper relevant to
That's okay.
Ron, but can you just talk for a second about the WSET path versus Lincoln Cicerone?
So you're asking about the WSET path versus the Cicerone path. Sure. Do you have any more specific questions?
Just, obviously, because you're knowledgeable on both.
I certainly am. I did work for the Cicerone program for 2.5 years as well. So they're very different. The Cicerone program at its inception was a certification body, so it's really focused on the exams, and there's a lot of reliance on self-study. WSET, you cannot just take the exam. You have to take the course, and the course will give you all the information you need for the exam. Everything you need to know is in the books that we give you, so you get your book. And then we have a much stronger focus on just understanding what's in the glass. So that's key difference number one. The Cicerone program, certainly they have Beer Savvy for level 1, and they're developing some resources, but we are really about the courses linked to the exam. Another key difference is that the Cicerone program is geared towards specific jobs, right? The certified beer server is for beer servers. Certified Cicerone was designed for bar managers. Advanced Cicerone came later, and Master Cicerone. The idea was that we, back when we still had the dream that we would have Cicerones in restaurants, so that fine dining restaurants would have a compelling beer selection, and they would call us out to come and tell them. And so with WSET, really, the organization, it's a nonprofit also. I guess that's a distinguishing feature. WSET is a not-for-profit, and so it was founded in '69, and the idea is to support the industry through education. So it started wanting to support the wine industry there in the UK, and the idea was if people don't understand the beverage, they're not going to buy, they're not going to be adventurous. And so that original course was mostly wine, and it had like a little bit on beer and a little bit on spirits because it was the 60s. And that's all you needed back then, right? And so now they've branched out and they've separated out the spirits course and created a full stream and the beer stream and the sake stream. And again, another point of difference is that we are, not only subject matter experts, but we're also education experts. So we have like a whole education team that is staying up to date on, what are the most effective teaching methods, and we teach that to the educators. And the educators... and then we have like a translation team. We have an exam team that just creates the exams. It's all very segmented. It's all in the UK. There's an organization called Ofqual, and they're like a quality of teaching certifying body, and so we have to abide by their very specific standards. Any other questions?
No, that was awesome. Thank you.
Yeah. Oh, the levels are different too. So level 1, as I mentioned, is just 6 hours. So very, very entry level, universally applicable. I would say it's hard to gauge because there's definitely fewer styles than certified beer server, but there's much more focus on tasting. So it's developing a different skill set.
On Cicerone, the server.
Yeah.
So I was
Nice.
curious about that.
Yeah. Did you do it online or yeah. Cool. We also have an online offering, but again, our online offering has a teacher that's teaching. You're still doing it on your own time, but there's a teacher that does like Q&As and answers questions and blue. Yep. Nope. You can take whichever level you want. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
I have a question because we're actually trying to determine this on our own menu right now.
Uh-huh.
When we have them separated into hazy hoppy and dark and malty, but then within the actual beer itself, we have different opinions, whether it should be just kind of like 5 little bullet points, like chocolate and coffee and roasting, or is it a half a paragraph written out, and then, there's a lot of words to read there. So do customers have some kind of fatigue with seeing too much information? Do we have to suggest what might appeal to people more so in that way?
Yeah. So some customers like quick and snappy, and some customers like a lot of information. The customers who like a lot of information will also be question askers. So I would keep it snappy. I would try to have some consistency across the beers again, so that people know, like, oh, I like this beer. Oh, wait, this has a common flavor with that beer. Like, not new, not maybe try to find 10 descriptive terms. And like, if you have 5, the first 2 should be consistent across the board, and then the other 3 give you, like, focus on similarities and on differences, if that makes sense. And then again, just make sure your staff has tasted everything and can speak to those nuances. Because, yeah, I just last week taught a course in an area where they basically just drink lagers, and the overwhelm is real. You know, we live and breathe it, we love it, we know it. But oh my goodness, it was a lot. It was interesting to watch these, really engaged, like really enthusiastic people just slowly getting a little overwhelmed around the edges, and then just bringing it all back together and all back together. But it's, I think it's easy to overwhelm people. All right. Well, thank you very much for your time. I'm here if you have questions. I'll just chill out. And I hope this was useful.
Thank you, everyone, and thank you, Mirella.